So we have a cryo stimulation or a cryo chamber at our disposal here, and that's a full body unit. So recently, everyone's seeing the cold baths and such have sprung in the last year or two on Instagram and all the social media. So this is basically a beefed up version of that, right? And this is actually in the peer reviewed literature to help with things like what's called the HPA axis, and we won't go into like the physiology of that, but essentially it helps with blunting the cortisol response. Everyone's heard of cortisol before, and it's not all bad, but it does have some negative effects. So what happens is it essentially helps to blunt that cortisol response, so that if you do it right before a training session, you will not have as high of a cortisol release as you would if you didn't do that cryo beforehand. Right. Another positive benefit is it really helps with the joints, kind of decrease the inflammation that you might see around joints, right? And so I myself right now have kind of a couple of disc herniations that are very symptomatic. So I jump in that cryo chamber and feel 100% better when I come out of it. So, and of course, this is just an acute kind of thing. It's not fixing anything, especially at that level. It's not gonna fix any herniations or anything like that. But in the short term, it definitely makes it feel better, more manageable. So as a player going through a season, or especially if you think about pitchers, in these adult league teams might only have one or two guys that they rely on week in and week out. So if you're a pitcher, definitely would help to jump in the cryo and help with some of that shoulder inflammation that might spur up from a long game and in a long season.
It's like going to Space Mountain at Disney World. You've been on roller coasters before, but the excitement and the kind of the fear of the unknown and the scariness of it was like getting in this cryo chamber. It was like, I don't like being cold at all, and but this is for benefits, and it was pretty futuristic. And again, research. You do a little research on cryotherapy. It's pretty impressive that this is like something that Chris Currie can go down to Foxborough and do.
What we were having Chris do was more of a dynamic warm up, not necessarily stretching. Like the muscles are going to be stretched during those dynamic movements, but stretched in a dynamic fashion, right? So a movement fashion. And why we were having him do that after the cryo was because he was then going to go into some movement assessments. So being prepared, being a little bit warmed up, especially after being in the cold cryo chamber, we wanted to warm his muscles up, quite literally warm the temperature of those muscles up so they become more pliable. So then he could go into some movement assessments and more performance-based assessments with the jumping that we had him do.
And then what was interesting was the whole point of it is to design a program to help strengthen your weaknesses from an athletic perspective. And one of the questions I think I asked Doug was, I have a shoulder issue that, it's been bothering me. And he said, Chris, it might not even be a shoulder that's the problem. It could be your mechanics are off and your hips are causing some sort of a pulling from the tightness in here. I mean, it made so much sense that everything is so connected. And they design a program specifically for the individual. So it's all customized, and it's really, really fascinating.
We have so many offerings that not many places have all under one roof. You can find each of the things that we have in different facilities, but they're not all together. So that's one huge benefit. But another one that is equally as huge is the staff that we have here at our performance center. So we have multiple strength coaches with great backgrounds, and collectively we have worked at every level of strength and conditioning with every level athlete that you could work with. So Olympic, professional, collegiate, we've all been in these settings. And then we have a dedicated biomechanist that runs that whole side of our facility. And so, collectively, we have not only the tools, but the people, the practitioners in place that are experts in utilizing those tools and creating the training programs that will then bring about the outcomes that that everyone who comes in the doors here are looking to achieve.